When Jeudy stormed out his media session, it wasn't because he couldn't take criticism. It was because the questions were all wrong. The press wanted to frame it as a rift between a veteran receiver and his rookie quarterback. Judy stopped him cold. He wasn't distancing himself from Sanders. He was defending him with barely concealed anger.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
He laid out what the media missed. Sanders had been deprived of the very things that build success: reps, time, and support. The real breakdown wasn't on the field. It was in the way the Browns had mishandled their youngest asset. SS new match photos, Judy's response forced a reckoning. The media's surface-level takes overlooked the broader dysfunction eating away at the team's future. His words revealed more than just frustration. They exposed the gaps in leadership and player development strategy that plague Cleveland. By flipping the narrative, Judy may have sparked the very accountability the organization has long avoided. And as Sanders steps into the next game, the pressure isn't just on him. It's on those who fail to prepare him. Jeudy didn't flinch. He didn't soften his tone. He didn't tiptoe around the situation. He stood in front of reporters, stared directly into the circus of Cleveland media speculation, and laid it out plainly. Shedeur Sanders is not the problem. CB locker room photos, and just like that, the Browns' carefully controlled PR bubble burst wide open. This wasn't just a post-game quote or a moment of heat. It was a pointed, intentional, and long overdue reality check for a franchise that's been failing its young quarterback before he's even had the chance to fail on his own. The media tried to bait Judy into throwing Sanders under the bus. That was the move. They circled him with questions implying there was tension, frustration, a lack of chemistry. And instead of playing along, Judy snapped. Not at Sanders, not at the play calling, but at the deeper problem everyone else was skimming over. CB training camp photos. According to Judy, the real issue isn't anything happening on the field. It's what's not happening off the field. No consistent practice reps. No developmental structure. No time to build trust, timing, or rhythm. Just a rookie being tossed into the fire week after week and expected to perform like a 5-year veteran. That's what pushed Judy to speak up. And when he did, he ripped the lid off a much bigger conversation about leadership, development, and accountability inside the Browns organization. Because this isn't just about Sanders. This is about how Cleveland has been operating from the top down. A franchise that says it wants to build for the future, but doesn't put in the work to support that future. A team that drafts talent, but forgets the part where you develop it. And a leadership group that, when things go sideways, conveniently turns the heat on the players rather than owning their role in the chaos. What Judy exposed is a truth every player knows, but rarely says out loud. You can't fake preparation. And when a quarterback doesn't get the reps, you see it on the Judy's frustration wasn't vague. He was clear. Shedeur Sanders hasn't had the time or opportunity to build chemistry with the offense because he's barely been given the chance to. And now the media is acting like his development issues are some kind of personal failure. That's where Judy drew the line. This isn't the first time we've seen something like this in Cleveland. The franchise has a long, messy history of mismanaging quarterbacks. Names come and go. The hype builds. And then it crashes because the structure behind them is paper thin. Sanders is just the latest in a long line of prospects who look promising on draft day and then disappear under poor planning and fractured leadership. The difference this time is that Judy is blowing the whistle in real time. He's not waiting until the season ends. He's not protecting the brand. He's standing up for a rookie in the middle of the storm and making it clear that the real breakdown is coming from the top. That's not just bold, it's disruptive. Veteran players speaking out against the organization, especially publicly, isn't common. It risks backlash. It invites questions. But it also sends a message. The locker room is watching. The players know what's going on. And they're done staying quiet while the wrong people get blamed. And Judy's not wrong. Sanders isn't being protected by the system. He's being failed by it. The Browns have created a scenario where a young quarterback has to prove himself without being set up to do so. They withheld the foundational support needed to grow, then stood back and waited for first bad throw to say, "See? He's not ready." But how could he be? Judy emphasized that quarterback-receiver chemistry isn't something you can just turn on like a light switch. It's built over time, through hours of practice, shared reps, real game experience, none of which Sanders has consistently had. So, what exactly was expected of him? To pull perfect reads out of thin air? To deliver flawless timing to a group he barely practiced with? That's the trap, and Judy saw it. So when the media tried to flip the narrative, tried to make it seem like he was frustrated with Sanders, Judy shut it down, fast, because he was frustrated. But not with the rookie, with the machine that's been setting him up to fail since camp. And the implications are huge. And Andrew Berry, because if this is how the Browns treat the quarterback they're grooming for the future, what does that say to the rest of the roster? If a young player can't even get basic developmental support, what happens to everyone else still waiting their turn? Judy's words didn't just offend Sanders. They held a mirror up to the Browns organization. And what it reflected wasn't pretty. A fractured leadership structure. A lack of alignment between coaching and management. A reactive, rather than proactive, approach to player development. And now the pressure is, the next time Sanders steps on the field, it's no longer just about a performance. It's a test of everything Judy said. A test of whether the narrative holds, whether Sanders can still shine in spite of being underprepared, whether the organization has the guts to back the player they drafted, or whether they'll continue to deflect blame and hide behind talking points. And no matter what happens, Judy has already won in one key way. He's made the real issue unavoidable. There's no more dodging the question. No more throwing the rookie under the bus. Now, the microscope is on the people making the decisions, because Judy made sure of it. If Sanders thrives, it'll validate everything Judy said. The talent was always there, it just needed nurturing. If Sanders struggles, then the question becomes why he wasn't developed properly from the start. Either way, the conversation has shifted, permanently. And that's exactly why this moment matters. Because players like Shedeur Sanders deserve more than to be talked about like a headline. They deserve support, representatives, structure. And when that's missing, they deserve someone to say so. Jeudy did. And whether you agree with how he said it or not, you can't deny that he forced a franchise to confront its own dysfunction. You can't deny that he stood up for a teammate when it mattered most. And you can't deny that he shifted the spotlight from blame to accountability, where it should have been all along. Let us know your thoughts. Was Judy out of line or exactly right? Do you think the Browns will course correct, or are they locked in another cycle of mismanagement? Drop a comment, share your take, and hit that like button if you want to see more breakdowns like this. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed, because this story, it's far from over. Let's talk about what this really means. Because now that Jeudy has cracked this thing wide open, there's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube. The Cleveland Browns are officially in the hot seat. Not because of a bad game or a losing record, but because one of their own just exposed the organizational rot from inside the locker room. And it had to be someone from the inside. No coach, no exec, no generic press statement was going to make people wake up to what's actually been happening with Shedeur Sanders. It had to come from a player, someone respected, someone who's been in the league long enough to know what's real and what's spin. That someone was Judy. And let's not underestimate what he just did. He didn't just go off on a reporter. He flipped the narrative. He changed the entire trajectory of the conversation around Sanders. 1 minute, the media was sniffing around for sound bites about poor chemistry and rookie mistakes. And the next, they were dealing with a veteran wide out, pointing the finger right back at the organization. He didn't get defensive. He got honest. And that honesty hit like a freight train. Because deep down, fans knew something wasn't right. You could feel it. Sanders wasn't playing like himself, sure, but he also wasn't being given the runway to do so. Every snap felt like it was under a microscope. Every mistake was being magnified. And the coaching staff? Silent. The front office? Nowhere to be. Then Judy steps up and says out loud that the problem was an effort or attitude or even talent. It's reps, it's timing. It's a complete lack of development. And he said it directly to the people who needed to hear it. The media that's been shaping the conversation. Because let's be real, it wasn't just the Browns mismanaging things. It was the coverage, 2. Talking heads focusing on surface-level narratives. Speculating about tension between Judy and Sanders. Grasping at storylines that pit players against each other when the actual issue was organizational failure. Judy cut through that noise in one sentence. He hasn't been given the time. And that line changes everything. Because when a guy like Jeudy says a rookie hasn't had the necessary time to develop, that means something. He's not just talking. He's pulling back the curtain on the entire process. How game plans are built, how practices are structured, how decisions are made behind the scenes. He's saying, you want to know why we're out of sync? Look at the system. Look at how little work this kid's been allowed to get in with the first team. And it's that kind of statement that sends ripples through a locker room. Because now it's not just a debate, it's proof. Proof that Sanders is being mishandled. Proof that the problems run deeper than the field. And the Browns? They're stuck. Because there's no PR playbook for this. You can't bench Judy. You can't fine him without looking like you're trying to silence him. And you can't ignore it either, because everyone heard it. Fans, media, players. That genie's not going back in the bottle. So what now? That's the uncomfortable question hanging over this entire team. Do they acknowledge what Judy said? Do they finally admit that their development plan for Sanders was flawed, or more likely non-existent? Or do they try to sweep it under the rug and hope a decent performance next week calms everything down? If they go with option 2, it's not going to work. Because this isn't just about one bad week. This is about how this team handles its future. It's about whether the Browns are willing to confront the hard truths or just keep cycling through quarterbacks, blaming everything but themselves. And for Shedeur Sanders, this is career-defining. He's not just playing to prove he belongs. He's playing to prove that he can rise above the chaos. That he isn't the problem. That he's capable of delivering when the people around him finally stop getting in the way. That's an insane amount of pressure for any rookie. But that's where we are. The microscope is locked in. Every throw he makes now is going to be analyzed, not just for accuracy, but for implication. Was that completion a sign of potential finally realized? Was that interception the result of rushed development? Every decision is a referendum on the people who have been managing or mismanaging his growth. And that's the real tragedy of this whole situation. Because it didn't have to be this way. If the Browns had simply committed to a development plan, an actual, structured, quarterback-focused plan, this wouldn't be a national headline. Sanders could have grown quietly, learned from reps, and stepped into a starting role when he was actually ready. But instead, they gave him scraps, then expected perfection. Judy saw it and said what everyone else was too careful to admit. And maybe it was calculated. Maybe Judy knew exactly what he was doing. Maybe he saw the team circling Sanders with blame and decided, nope, not this time. Maybe he realized that sometimes the only way to force change is to shake the tree so hard everyone has to look up. If that was the goal, he nailed it. Because now, every storyline has shifted. The focus isn't on Sanders being mad or unprepared. It's on the Browns' inability to create an environment where a young quarterback can succeed. It's on the decision-makers, the coaches, the people who've been sitting silently while the media tried to stir up a feud that didn't exist. That silence speaks volumes. And if the Browns don't say something soon, don't show any willingness to shift course, this won't just be a bad week. It'll become the defining issue of their season. Because now the stakes are higher, not just for Shedeur, not just for Judy, but for the entire team. If leadership lets this fester, if they don't show some humility and change their approach, they'll lose the locker room. And when you lose the locker room, you lose everything. Momentum, credibility, control. The Browns can't afford that. Not again. Not with yet another young quarterback whose future is hanging in the balance. So the next time Sanders steps on that field, don't just watch his arm. Watch his support. Watch who's standing by him. Who's actually giving him the reps, the confidence, the system to succeed. Because if the team still doesn't give him those things, and he still manages to perform, that won't be a comeback. That'll be a condemnation. Of everyone who said he wasn't ready. Of everyone who stayed quiet while the system failed him. of every coach who sat on their hands and let the rookie take the blame. And if that happens, if Shedeur Sanders rises anyway, Jeudy will be more than just a teammate who spoke out. He'll be the one who protected the future when no one else would. Let's not pretend this is business as usual. Jeudy going off on reporters wasn't just a moment of frustration. It was a tectonic shift. One of those moments that feels small in real time, but echoes for weeks, maybe even seasons, after it's over. You could see it in his face. This wasn't about stats, box scores, or practice miscues. This was personal. This was bigger than football. Judy saw a rookie being set up to take the fall, and he wasn't going to let it slide. Not this time. And now the Browns are stuck in a fallout, trying to act like things are fine. But they're not. You don't get a media explosion like that from a veteran without months of pressure building behind the scenes. This wasn't spontaneous. This was the lid blowing off. Judy didn't mince words. He didn't throw Shedeur Sanders on the bus. He threw the organization under it. And if you're paying attention, you know exactly why. Let's rewind. Since the moment Sanders arrived in Cleveland, expectations have been sky high. Not just because of his name, not just because of the hype, but because people knew he had it. The talent, the leadership, the potential to be that guy. But potential needs structure. And that's where Cleveland fumbled. They drafted Sanders. They promoted his future. But they didn't build the path. No consistent reps, no clear plan, no patience. They wanted NFL-ready results with college-level investment. And when the results didn't show up right away, the blame started creeping in, not from Judy, not from the players, from the press, from the speculation, from the outside. And instead of stepping up to shield their rookie, to explain the context, to own their missteps, the Browns stayed silent. Judy saw it happening, week after week, question after question. And when they tried to twist his words, to bait him into confirming some media narrative that Sanders was immature or mad or not ready, that's when he snapped. And it was about time. Because the deeper you look, the clearer the picture becomes. This isn't about missed throws. This is about reps that never happened. Chemistry that never had time to form. Trust that was never nurtured. Judy laid it out in plain terms. You can't build chemistry in thin air. You can't develop a rookie if you never give him the snaps, never give him the time. You can't build a winning system if your quarterback is learning it in the middle of the game. And now the Browns have a decision to make. A real one. They could pretend this was a one-off, that Judy got emotional, that it's all just noise. Or they can listen, really listen, because what he said wasn't just a rant. It was the truth. You can't keep saying you believe in a guy while simultaneously refusing to invest in him. You can't expect Sanders to deliver results without giving him the infrastructure to succeed. And you definitely can't expect the locker room to stay silent when they see what's going on. Judy wasn't just speaking for himself. He was speaking for every player who's watched a teammate get left out to dry by the people in charge. And now, the pressure is on them. The front office, the coaching staff, the so-called leadership. Because there's no hiding from this anymore. Fans heard it. Analysts heard it. The entire NFL ecosystem heard it. And if the Browns don't respond, if they keep running the same system, with the same broken habits, expecting different results, they're going to lose a lot more than games. They're going to lose trust from their players, from their fan base, from the very people who still want to believe this team can turn it around. But it starts with accountability. And up to now, Cleveland has shown very little of it. That's what Judy was demanding. Not a quarterback change. Not a new playbook. Just accountability. For how they've handled Shedeur. For how little they've given him to work with. For how quickly they've allowed public opinion to turn against a player who hasn't even been given a chance to show what he can really do. It's not complicated. Give him the reps. Let him grow. Support him. And if they won't, then yeah, maybe more players should speak. Because here's the truth nobody wants to say. If Sanders balls out in the next game, after all this noise, all this pressure, with the world watching, it's not going to prove he's elite. It's going to prove the Browns held him back. It's going to raise every single question Judy was trying to make people ask in the first place. Why wasn't this the guy starting sooner? Why didn't he get more preseason reps? Why did the team make him look unprepared when the lack of preparation was on them? That game, whenever it comes, won't just be a game. It'll be a statement. A chance to rewrite the narrative that's been built around Sanders since the moment Cleveland drafted him, without the commitment to actually develop him. And if he struggles, well, that's on them too. Because when you neglect a rookie quarterback for months, you don't get to act surprised when he plays like someone who's been neglected. You can't demand NFL-level consistency without NFL-level support. And you sure as hell can't turn around and act like it's a him problem when everyone knows it's been a systemic issue from day one. CB training camp photos. That's what Judy made crystal clear. This isn't just about wins and losses anymore. It's about what kind of team Cleveland wants to be. Do they want to be a place where young players thrive? Or do they want to keep being the cautionary tale? The ones who draft talent and never know what to do with it. The ones who can't decide if they're building for the future or panicking for the present. The ones who silence their own veterans instead of listening to them. Right now, the answer's still up in the air, but not for long. CB fans photos, let us know where you land. Was Judy speaking uncomfortable truths or going too far? Should the Browns change how they're handling Sanders now? Or are they already too far down the wrong path? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're here for real accountability. And subscribe for more unfiltered breakdowns of the drama the league won't admit is real, but players like Judy won't let you ignore. This isn't just one story. It's the start of something bigger. And we'll be right here, following every play.